What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday night. Hope y'all had a good weekend, and hope the start of this week has gone good for all of you too. Um, for those of you who was waiting for me to finish the series, I apologize. I meant to have it all done by now, but make a long story short, last week was kind of a fucked up week in more than one way, and I just didn't feel up to it. But I'm gonna get back at it now. So what I'm gonna do is, I've already talked about all the stuff that, what led me to my incarceration. I talked about being in the county jail, Elmira Correctional Facility, and then Mohawk. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2, maybe 3 videos about Collins Correctional Facility, because that's where I did most of my time. So 2 or 3 on that, and then the last one I'm going to make is not going to be about any war stories or anything like that. That one's going to be strictly about the regret and remorse that I live with on a daily basis because of my decisions. So, where are we? Oh yeah. So last time I left off with, I got put on the draft, which I was not happy about because freaking I told you about, being on transit and you're all shackled up and cuffed and you got that dreaded black box in between your cuffs, and it's a mess. It's an absolute freaking mess. And freaking, right before that, I had to freaking suitcase tobacco because I just went to commissary on Monday. Wednesday I got told I was going to be on draft, and I wasn't going anywhere new without tobacco. So, I'm sure most of you know what suitcase means, but for you naive people that don't, it means you use your body as a place to hide things. Not the most pleasant experience of my life, but it wasn't the worst. So, but the first time I was on the draft, I was in shackles in the black box for about 8 hours. 8 hours, I think. And then, but I had like a 40-minute break when we got to Auburn. So that was nice. But this time, totally different story. Freaking, it was me and one other Mohawk inmate. And this is in a van. And so we left, and we had to go pick up somebody else at Marcy Correctional Facility, which wasn't far from Mohawk. They're all in Rome, and then Marcy's right across the road from Midstate. And so it took forever, getting the dude from Marcy just sitting in there. They got to freaking lift the freaking hood up of the engine. It's a ridiculous freaking process. I mean, I understand why they do it, but I don't know. It's weird. But anyway, this time I was in that shit for freaking over 13 hours. 13 hours. No break. No break. And what made it even worse is it was in the middle of the summer. So it was fucking hot. Oh, it was miserable because after we picked up the dude from Marcy, the dude from Marcy and the other guy were going to Lakeview, which is a shock correctional facility, and I was gonna go to Collins. So I thought we're just gonna, I thought 2 things might happen. I either thought that they would just take I-90 all the way there, drop those guys off, and then take me, or somebody told me, like, don't be surprised if you spend the weekend over at Attica and then you'll go again. I'm like, at this point, I didn't freaking care, because I was actually kind of looking forward to Collins because, like, well, theoretically speaking, But the reason for that is like everybody, who I did, time with in the county jail, and a couple other guys, who who I was in prison with, said Collins was an all right spot. So, but we didn't go straight there. We were on I-90, and then they hopped on 81 South, and that's when it dawned on me we were going to Elmira. So we left at like 8:15 in the morning. Got to Elmira like around noon, just to freaking sit there on a hot ass bus in shackles and cuffs. It was miserable, absolutely freaking miserable. So, and then the buses don't typically leave until like 4:30 or so. So it's a long day. And then, well, the one thing about that day I'll never remember is, back when I first started the series, I said that some people's names I'm going to change. And, for two reasons. One, to protect myself, and, some people deserve some privacy for what they did. We're going to call him Mark, my buddy Mark. Mark's about 9 years older than me. He'd been locked up since 2009. He didn't have an 09 number, but he'd been down like at least 14 years. And I just remember, like, damn, bro, dude, this fucking dude is jacked. And he is. He was a crazy freaking workout nut. But I actually ended up looking up to this man as an older brother. And, because he had done a bunch of time, and his case was pretty crazy. From what he told me, some dude robbed him, I think maybe like 10 pounds of weed, 300 something ecstasy pills, and a few $1,000s. Well, stabbed the dude, and then the dude passed away. But this happened in the early 2000s, and he didn't get caught until 2009. So he went about 7 or 8 years, which that's crazy. He originally was looking at 25 to life, but he wouldn't take that, and then he ended up getting, I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was high teens, and so yeah, freaking. So we're on this bus, and we're on a bus that the Lakeview officers were in charge of. And make a funny story, freaking one of the Lakeview officers, I can't remember his name, but he used to be a drill instructor on Paris Island for the Marine Corps, and you could definitely tell. Well, kind of a funny story. Basically, I have no ass. I'm flat. Flat, don't got nothing. And so this officer had to freaking reshackle me like 3 or 4 times. Like on that butt, and he would bust my balls all, like, each time. He's like, if you were coming with me, your name would be No Ass. I'm like, well, it's not the first time I've ever heard that name, so that ain't nothing new. So there was about maybe, most of the guys on the bus were going to Lakeview, but there was maybe about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 of us going to Collins. A few people were going to the box, Collins box, and the Shoe 200, and then the other ones were going to the facility. Well, like I said, freaking, we were shackled up for like I was shackled up for like 13 hours. It was a miserable fucking day. Miserable. So we get there, and then I get to E2, the reception dorm, and then I run into a handful of people who I knew in Elmira. So it was nice to see some familiar faces. It really was. Actually, at both at Mohawk and at Collins, I actually and Elmira too. You always run into people who you know from the street or something. More likely than not. And so, anyway, we get there. It's like after 9:30 at night. Freaking, I'm fucking exhausted. But you want to know what? Freaking, that night was actually kind of fun. I had some fun that night. I'm not gonna lie. Freaking, and one thing I saw that I couldn't believe, that I never thought they would do, like, a lot of people. One of the most popular drugs in prison, besides Suboxone, is that K2 spice. A lot of people refer to it as synthetic marijuana, but that is like the worst thing to freaking call it, because there is no similarities with the two. Nothing. I mean, the buzz off the K2 freaking is, similar to being stoned, but it's different. And the guys who are freaking selling, they're giving, passing out free samples and sticks and stuff like that because they want your business. So yeah, I got like three fucking free samples that night. And I got pretty fucking lit. And then but I remember this was a totally different spot, and I was only maybe about 2 months into my bid or so, and so far up to that point, things have went pretty smooth. I went through 2 facilities. I only had what I would consider one minor issue with an officer. He came when I was in quarantine. I freaking was doing curls on the bars on my windows, and the freaking sergeant from across the road freaking saw me and fucking bitched. But that was the only problem I had up to that point. Well, one thing that I was blown away with at first, because, like I said in one of my other videos, is each facility, the phones never run the same. In Elmira, you have all those phones in the gym. There's like 15 of them, I think. And then at Mohawk, what they did was every day the COs would freaking have a sheet of paper, and we got to pick 2 slots, one in the morning and afternoon, and then another one for the evening. But if there was a free spot and an open phone, it was all grabs. Collins, this is ridiculous. Freaking, my one buddy's freaking showing me around, and he's like, that's a Buffalo phone, that's a Crip phone, that's a Muslim phone. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't understand that at all. But I had to understand it really quick, because I know people have freaking gotten shot over using the wrong phone. And I think it was my second or third day there, I actually was caught being on a phone that I wasn't supposed to be on. I didn't know, but they let me off with a warning, but they told me that was my first and final warning. So I knew they were serious. So getting on the phone was a little tricky there. I mean, but like people, like there's certain people who own the phones. Like, that's their phone. They run it, and freaking they tell anybody who can and can't use it. Freaking, it's stupid. It's fucking stupid. And the homies love it that way, because they're the ones that freaking run the phones. And you want to know what homies means, you're in a gang, like Bloods and Crips. They're homies, and the Bloods are like the most, probably most powerful gang in prison. Well, most powerful, the dangerous gang is the COs. But when it comes to inmates, the Bloods are pretty rough. I knew quite a few of them, and I never really had a problem with them. I mean, I will later in the story. I will talk about issues that I had with a certain inmate, but I remember the first weekend I was at Collins. That was one of the roughest times of my bid, and that's because my parents were renewing their vows for their 40th wedding anniversary, and I couldn't be there. I felt like such a piece of shit and a scumbag and a failure that day. And it kind of still does bother me a little bit, but I know, it is what it is. Nothing I could do about it, and I wouldn't expect my parents to freaking put their 40th on a hold just for me. I wouldn't want them to do that. So I felt like a piece of shit. And then but also I wasn't even at this place a week, and freaking they're starting to give out Suboxone in the prisons. They never did before, and now freaking they're basically letting anybody who wants to be on the shit, they let them have it. Like, there was one guy freaking, he had a 1998 number, and they freaking give it to him. He's been locked up since 1998. Freaking, why are you giving it to him? I mean, I don't care. Like, I don't discriminate against people when with drugs they do, because I have no room to fucking talk, no room at all. But I've seen some people develop really severe Suboxone habits, and they go broke. Freaking, they end up getting in debt. It's a mess. Prison is no place to cure a freaking a dope habit. It's just not. Freaking, you can easily get drugs in prison as you can on the street, if not more. It's not a joke. But one day in the Suboxone line, the Suboxone line at Collins was a lot more lax than Mohawk. Well, because at Elmira, they made us freaking stand there until it dissolves, and mad people were getting their shit back in Elmira, but I didn't, because I was in so much pain because of my back. I needed the medication, and fucking CO fucking Turner, biggest fucking douchebag CO I freaking ever met. Fucking he didn't fucking play. Freaking, he just looked at me one day and he said, "Try it." I'm like, "Try what?" I didn't do anything. He's like, "Yeah, you were thinking about it." I'm like, "The fuck, what I'm thinking?" Whatever. But at Mohawk, it was tough. They made us freaking sit down, sit on our hands, cross our legs, and we had to sit there for at least 15 minutes. Freaking, it was damn near freaking impossible to get it back. I tried one time, and the nurse saw it on the back of my teeth, and I said, cause I put the shit on the roof of my mouth because you don't freaking taste it as much. So anyway, I wasn't able to freaking go to commissary right away because, it was a mess when your money freaking transfers or whatever. I had to wait a few weeks. But Suboxone is money, good money. Like at Mohawk, freaking a milligram of Suboxone costs 2 bricks, which bricks are packs of cigarettes, which are like $11. And half a milligram was 1 brick. I get to Collins because, well, my old neighbor freaking gave me a milligram to freaking take with me because I had to give away a bunch of my commissary shit, and he told me freaking get some stuff with it. And so I went to one of my buddies, and I'm like, yo, freaking, what's the freaking, rate with fucking, Suboxone? And for a milligram, they said, oh, freaking maybe $7. I'm like, what? $7? That's it? That was crazy. But freaking, I'll never forget. It was August 31st, 2022. Make a long story short, I got caught with my fingers in my mouth. And freaking, well, it's actually kind of funny because the officer who fucking caught me, Officer Seafeld, he fucking reamed me out. Freaking basically said if he caught me with my fingers in my mouth again, he'd fucking spray freaking a whole can of mace on me. Fucking would beat the fucking shit out of me. And then he called the fucking goon squad with a sergeant and 3 other officers. And they took me into the draft room. There's eyeing me. I'm like, do what you guys gotta do. He's like, and the one officer's like, shut up. You don't make the fucking rules. How about I knock you the fuck out right now? I stayed silent. He freaking, they put me on the wall, and he points to this little fucking spot on the wall. He's like, you see this? If your eyes or your head freaking leave the spot, I'm going to take it as an attack against me. So basically, he was setting me up to fuck me up. And he told me to freaking take my right hand, take my left shoe off, and hand it to him. Well, I always double tie my shoes, and freaking, I couldn't get it off. They're like, rip the fucker off. So I did, and I was just trying to be quick about it, and I was supposed to hand it to him in my hand, but I slid it back to him with my foot. This gets easier as time goes on, but freaking, I was fucking scared. I thought they threw me off the wall onto another wall. They start freaking punching me. Freaking, I got kicked. Like, I thought the fuckers were going to kill me. I mean, it could have been a lot worse. It definitely could have been a lot worse. But freaking, but when you're freaking, on the wall with freaking 4 COs and you're alone, it's scary and shit. That's when shit happens. Thankfully, that was the only time COs ever put hands on me. Like I said, in medium security prisons, they beat you behind closed doors. In the max, they don't give a fuck. They'll do it right on the fucking tier gallery, right in front of sergeants, lieutenants, fucking DOPs. Freaking, they don't care. And so, yeah, so that shook me up a little bit. And then my buddy Mark came, sat, down next to me, and he told me a story about when he was at 5 Points. Freaking, he had got caught with like a sugar packet in his pocket, and they fucking beat the shit out of him for that. Yeah, like little petty shit. Like they'll beat you the fuck up for no reason. And not a lot of these prisons have cameras because Docs doesn't want them. Because with the cameras, that's less freaking shit that they can get away with that they do to us. And then the other thing about Collins, freaking, this place was fucking falling apart. It was a dump. Complete shithole. Freaking, Collins Correctional Facility and the place across the fence, Gowanda, which is closed now, was a big, psychiatric hospital back in the day. And then they turned it both into two prisons. Same buildings around. It was big, one big campus, but there was a fence that separated Gowanda and Collins. And excuse me, freaking new medication I'm on freaking dries my mouth out. It drives me crazy. Sorry about that. No, but this place was fucking falling apart. Like holes in the ceiling, chunks of concrete walls missing, freaking. And what really blew me away, and this fucking proves that Albany does not give a fuck at all. You would not believe the access that we had to nails and screws. Oh, they're fucking sticking out everywhere. Freaking, you could easily freaking pull them out with a pair of freaking toenail clippers. Like I used toenail clippers as a wrench before. It works. And it's fucking dangerous. Freaking, everybody's got freaking, something. And once I started to get used to being there, freaking in Elmira and Mohawk, I never felt that once that I needed to have a weapon to protect myself. Collins, it was a different freaking ball game. Freaking, I can count on one hand how many fights I've been in my life. I think I've only been in maybe 4 fights. And it's not something that I like to do. I don't. It's not fun. Some people think it is, but I don't like it. And it had been probably 14, 15 years since I've been in one. And I'm not, quick and agile as I used to be. So, yeah, freaking, I'm going to protect myself. I don't give a fuck, So, yeah, but this place was freaking falling apart. Very, very dangerous. And freaking, because of that, it gave us more places to hide things. They don't take that into consideration. Freaking, because Albany does freaking, they walk through every single correctional facility once, twice, 3 times a year, maybe. And, they're walking by and they're seeing all these nails, freaking, screws freaking sticking out, freaking, like, I don't know. Docs is a freaking really fucked up company. Oh, we're getting on about a half an hour here. All right, so I'm gonna stop here, and then I'll make maybe one more tonight if I feel like it, and then I'll probably have to do at least 3 videos on Collins alone, and then my final one will be about remorse and regret. All right, hope you're all doing well and enjoy. Stay tuned.